On life's journey, we see the past clearly, but the future cloudy. And if our present awareness is not good, that can generate a great deal of stress. How can we find our way and perhaps even enjoy the journey? Wherever you are this morning, good morning and good evening, and welcome to the Center of Calmness. We actually have quite a cast of characters today. We have a couple of returning guests. We have Shelley and Hamali, and we have a few new friends. I wonder if, with so many, if y'all would just introduce yourselves and where you're calling from.
I'm Jared. I'm actually Shelley's son, and that's how I know you, DK, and most of the group here, actually. And I'm currently in India, in the Himalayas of India.
All right.
And I'm Shelley. I'm his mom, and I teach meditation and the Bhagavad Gita and how to find your center of calmness. And I'm also in the Himalayas of India.
Hi, I'm Himali, and I am hoping that I can get to Himalayas of India. But currently I live in Maryland. Yeah.
All right. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Eckert, and I'm in New York, and I think we should all do a group trip to India.
Right.
And what I do, is I help women take the feminine path to soul purpose. So I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Awesome.
And I'm Zinnia. I'm also another neighbor here in the Himalayas. And I'm very excited to talk about calmness because I think that is the key to higher insights, higher awareness, is that we can first come to a place of peace and then look from there. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So glad that you're all able to join at the same time. This is like a minor miracle, right? To have all six of us together in one place at one time. Well, I mean, one virtual place, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So this is great. Thanks all of you for joining. And actually, I wonder if I might start with Zinnia with a question, because I think that our backgrounds are a little bit more similar than I previously thought before. Whereas Zinnia, if I understand, you actually have been studying how to eliminate stress, right, as part of international management and that sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. And that's how I really got excited about meditation, because I was talking about the stress and the stress cycle, and learning about meditation, I saw that it can intervene at any point, the stress cycle, and just bring the whole body, mind system back to a state of calmness.
Yeah. Absolutely. How did you find your path? Because you're traditionally educated, right? University and perhaps a job or two along the way. What was the epiphany moment that got you to realize that meditation was so powerful?
Well, as I was writing my thesis for my bachelor, I met somebody from here who my father had met at his work, and through a huge coincidence, I met her, and she taught me meditation. And just months after, like I did it for myself, but months after and into the final year of my studies, when the stress got real, I realized how much it had helped me. And then I decided to just go to India. And so from then on, my life has been more around India than the job. Like I kind of left that already then. And then I went back to work, and I went back to work again. But it's really more centered around this year, because it was just so clear that this, like, you have to have another perspective to be able to even find a ground to deal with stress in this life.
Absolutely, yeah. That's so huge, and I completely agree with that. And it's very similar to my own journey as well. But so you've learned meditation as someone came and taught you as you were in Germany at the time before you moved to India? Okay.
Yeah.
And could you maybe take us through that moment when you realized and really felt the effects of the shift away
Well,
from high stress of university life and the nearing of the completion of your and all the stuff you have to do to finish studies and get into those first
yeah.
couple work assignments?
Yeah, I mean, the first shift was the moment that we meditated together with my friend. And she came from Kulu, so she taught me exactly what, like, she introduced what Shelley introduced us, the knower. And that space where whatever is happening is just not so relevant, but it's not the most important. And I totally got that experience of having my stable stand in a completely different reality, really, that had nothing to do with the fluff that was going on. And just retreating to that, and also, yeah, using breathing techniques and all this helped my system to calm down so much that I noticed that these kind of panic attacks almost that I would experience from time to time weren't happening anymore the same way. And that was months later, and that was a huge aha. And I thought, wow, look at that. I can calm down my own system, and I don't even have to change the surrounding or the problem that I'm obsessing about.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we talk about here at the Center of Calmness. And as Shelley mentioned, that's a description of the method that Shelley teaches and how you can actually reach your own center of calmness that way. It's so powerful. Completely agree with that. I wonder if we might move to Susan real quick. And I just want to ask you that, Susan, that is such a beautiful mission that you mentioned. Could you maybe fill in a few of the gaps as to how you came to pursue what it is that you're doing now?
Yes. Well, life is a journey, and my life, I feel like a cat with 9 lives. Oh boy, I encountered meditation through a chronic illness, actually. I had an undiagnosed illness that left me semi-paralyzed and deteriorating. And I, of course, was in a state of panic at first. And I found meditation because there was nothing else for me to do. Doctors didn't know what to do with me. And so I was left to my own devices. And so something intuitively told me to go within, just to go within. And so I would start what I didn't realize then was meditation, 10, 15 minutes a day. And then it became 3 hours a day. And I just tapped internally to this beautiful universe and all the wisdom that we have access to when we go within. And so I didn't know what my future was going to be, but in those moments of clarity with my present focus, I just knew everything was going to be okay. And so the anxiety, the stress would just wane. And so, I'm teaching women now that we can all go within, and actually women have this natural gift of intuition, but we're so disconnected from it as a society, as a global society. And so I'm helping women reconnect, and meditation is a huge part of that whole process.
That's so huge, Susan. I'm so glad you shared that. And it's really interesting how the methodology of how you found yourself and your new calling was very similar, right, to what Zinnia and also Shelley had mentioned earlier. That is so cool. How did you decide to work just exclusively or primarily with women with the offering that you have?
Yeah, I came out of the corporate world. I was a human resources organizational development consultant at one point. And I left the corporate world because I was keenly aware that at that time, I'm much older than I appear to most people, but at that time, I felt like corporate America was not a comfortable or a safe place for women. We had to learn to do everything the man's way, the masculine way. It was very, very much about masculine energy, competition, over collaboration, do over be. And so I left corporate America, and I realized wow, so many women are, even if they're successful, it comes at a cost, a huge cost. And when I started researching statistics on women and confidence, I was really horrified by what I was finding. 70% of girls think they are not enough. 80% of women, regardless of how successful they are, feel they are not enough. And so I wanted to change that. I wanted to shift that because I had lived it. And I think so many women live it and not realizing that there is an alternative path.
Wow. Yeah, that's tremendous. Yeah, and I have not only heard the same feedback, but I've seen it as well in my own corporate background. Yeah, and amazing that you've taken on that calling. And how many do you work with groups, or do you do corporate training? How do you deliver your message and your teaching?
Yeah, I've been working one-on-one for the most part. And last year I did host a group, which was very, very fun. And I had one gentleman who was like, I really want to be in on this. I know you work with women. The doors are always open. But this coming year, I plan to do another group situation. So I'm hoping that, I'm just stepping into flow and surrendering. We'll see where it takes me.
So perfect. Stepping into flow and surrendering. It's so important and so not corporate.
Exactly.
It's the opposite of corporate life, where you kind of create an artificial objective that often I've noticed is not even congruent with what the corporation said they were about to start with. So it's amazing work. And I would also say that, although I completely agree, and I've heard the similar statistics that women find themselves kind of out of flow big time in the corporate world. There's quite a few men out there that are wondering if they're enough. So I think your offering would be appealing to a group of men as well.
Absolutely. And if I might say, one of my points is that this is not just for women. This is going to be healing for men too. And in fact, LinkedIn just announced they have like a chief compassion officer. And so I think when corporations are able to balance the feminine energy with the masculine energy, we're going to see a lot more titles like that.
That is huge. Yeah. And that would be a sign of progress. To have more and more corporations actually putting somebody in that role and focusing the rest of the executive community on those very necessary human needs, just because at the end, the teams are full of people, right? And people need to live, and they're all on a journey, individually and corporately. So, wow, that's tremendous, Susan. I really appreciate you sharing that. And Hamali, how does your journey tie in from Maryland to Kulu?
Or well, I started with meditation and everything. Started with Reiki, and quite a few years ago. And what I've realized is, with the busy lifestyle, I was working as a healthcare professional at a hospital and taking care of kids, and so my the clients that I work with are caregivers and healthcare workers. And to show them the peace and balance and grounding within themselves and really loving themselves. And I work with the same thing, with healthcare workers or caregivers. They feel that they haven't done enough. They give, and it's so hard to receive. They don't take, they're overwhelmed, overworked. And so helping them calm down. So I work with meditation and Reiki, which is Japanese form of touch healing. And so that's how, I started with meditation. And then I found Shelley last year and, taking classes with her. So that, that's where my journey comes from in terms of staying calm. And really, I practice daily meditation, but the true test was when you're going through these painful situations or even muscle pain, right? That debilitating where you can't get up. And that's when you're like, okay, how am I going to use this right now? That's the test, right? How is this going to calm myself down? And I'll tell you just one example where I had this severe muscle spasm and I couldn't get out of the bed. And I'm just screaming and shouting. That's my normal thing, right? And then I just heard a voice, calm down, take a breath, just breathe. And I was like, no, I don't want to breathe. I want to yell, throw a tantrum, right? That's the normal thing. I want everyone to come here and support me through this. But then once I calmed down, I started doing the meditation, and literally, I asked my patients, right, how much pain do you have? 0 to 10, 0 being no pain, and 10 being you have to be in the ER right now. My pain from say 9 went down to 4, and I was able to get out of bed, walk, and I didn't have, I do homeopathic medicine. I haven't taken traditional medicine for pain in like 5, 6 years. So I went to the store. I even did a 3-mile walk, and then, but I started taking care of myself. So it's so important, self-care. So I really promote that for women and men, both caregivers who give so much to take care of themselves. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't give someone what you don't have. And it goes with love, it goes with all that, right?
100%.
So you have to support yourself first.
Yeah, this is the whole idea of putting your own oxygen mask on, right? Before
right.
anyone else, you don't pass out, right?
Yeah.
And especially poignant these days, right? With the whole COVID thing still going, right?
Yeah.
Even though I hope we're on the tail end of it, perhaps. But it's just amazing how a global pandemic like that brings all this stuff to the surface. The healthcare workers have been suffering that for eons, right?
Yeah.
But to have all of them applied all at the same time, working on all the same thing, and then still having to work with everything else they have to work with.
Yeah.
The regular surgeries and garden variety concerns,
Yeah.
and dealing with all that stress put together. Yeah, completely amazing, Hamali, the work you're doing. But let me ask quickly though, in your journey, how did you reach the point of this awareness, where you realize that these types of meditations and the Reiki and other techniques that you teach are the way that you can help healthcare workers and also help yourself?
Well, I think that I personally, as a healthcare worker, I used to give Reiki to kids. I still teach kids and healthcare workers and everyone, but things were just falling apart for me. I was just really going through pure exhaustion, and kids were getting sick, and things were just not working out. I had to do something. So I had a friend who did holistic nutrition, and she's a physical therapist. So we constantly talked about how nutrition can change some of these things and how it can ground you, how you can use that. But now realizing I've been using that, right, with my growing up in India and following this vegetarian vegan diet and the whole Ayurvedic concept. But you kind of steer away from all this, right? As a teenager, and as you always rebel, you find all this food out there, you start eating that, and how that causes fogginess and draining to your body. And so I took that, and then kids started getting better. So I did holistic nutrition and Reiki. I found even as when I was working with my patients, that I had something like I would have heat come out of my palm, and I would know exactly where they were hurting, and I could feel warmth wherever they were hurting. And so I knew of Reiki. So I was like, there's something with my hands. And I knew of Reiki. One of my grandmother's neighbor did Reiki. And so I decided to do Reiki, and that just shifted and changed my whole life, and grounded me and just healed so much, so many traumas and pain and everything. So that's how I kind of came to that. And with healthcare workers, that's my passion. As being in that position, I've gone through all those exhaustion and overwhelm, and so that's why my passion is to help them heal, so that they can give that much love and compassion and kindness when they're working out there with other elderlies and other patients.
100%. That's so huge. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing those elements of your journey. I wonder could switch quickly to Jared. Jared, would you be able to share a bit of, and I'm always amazed at the depth of your technical knowledge in a number of different fields, actually including a little bit of information technology this morning, apparently, right? But can you maybe give us an overview of your journey through life and how you reached where you are now, and what your primarily calling and mission is these days?
Thanks, DK. I have always been sort of technically minded. That's definitely been a hobby for me throughout my life, which has led to work in various fields like that. But honestly, my calling has been, from a very, very early age, has been meditation. I mean, I mentioned Shelley is my mom, and she's been doing this for longer than I've been alive. And so it's been amazing for me to be able to grow up where in a place and with around people where meditation was just part of it was part of everyday life. I mean, for us, the concept of the knower, which is what a lot of my mom's classes that she teaches revolve around, the concept of the knower. And in fact, our website is knower.ca because that's such a central point for us. That concept of there being a sort of unifying energy that unites all of us, that is the observer of everything that happens. And although there is, on the individual body level, we do have to get involved in what we're doing, but it's always focusing on that universal nature that links all of us. And I mean, ultimately for me, I would say that's been I wouldn't even say purpose, that just has been my life, because that basic knowledge of sort of a sense of understanding that there's something that ties all of us together, beyond whatever divisions we see on geography or gender or qualification or background. They all sort of dissolve into us just being united. And so for me, that's very much been a sort of central part of my life. And meditation has just been the tool that's made that even more evident, and a way of essentially communicating that concept of the knower and giving people a sense of that direct experience of the knower, as opposed to just the concept of it. Because I do think that in meditation, you can go beyond just the concept and idea of saying that, yes, we're all connected. It sounds great, but to actually tune into a space where you can live that, meditation is just, at least for me, it's the tool that has always been the quickest route to getting to that. And that for me has definitely been the driving force in my life. And it's been really exciting in the last year. My mom started teaching classes online, and it's partially because of COVID. People are interested in this, and they're looking beyond their locality because people couldn't go out. They're just looking everywhere for this information. And as a result, we have an amazing community online, which is fantastic, where we can share our love of meditation and the idea of the knower. And it's been really inspirational for me.
Awesome. I have one more question for you, Jarrett, but before that,
Absolutely.
I wanted to touch base on a couple of comments that we've received from Idrissa, who is joining us from Liberia, West Africa. Welcome, Idrissa. Glad you're joining us here. Great to see you. And it sounds like you're a little confused about the topic, because we sound like we're all over the place, but actually we're not. The topic that we're talking about is life's journey, the truth we carry, and the people that we get to bring with us. Right? It sounds like a general topic, but it seems that everyone here has had no problem answering it, as they've all been sharing the journey that really got them from a place of either stress or not knowingness or potential confusion, to really having a serious clarity, and then having real techniques that work in not in some kind of virtual reality, but in reality, to shift and move forward, and then taking those techniques and helping other folks that they have a passion to help. So this has been just amazing how all the messages, actually, I have to admit, this was the point of this, right? How all these messages come together and form what I would call a universal truth. So I hope that helps clarify what we're talking about here this evening. I'm so glad you joined us. Jared, I wonder if that, to me, the only thing that I'm struggling with your story is that it's too perfect. How did you get to this understanding of universal oneness? Can you take us back to that moment when you perhaps shifted from the traditional natural, I'll use the word duality, right? But that understanding that if you survey 100 people out there, that most people have, and then suddenly you have the understanding you have now. Was there a moment that you experienced that you can recall having that shift, and what was that like?
I would say it's a series of moments, and I would say also that ultimately it's essentially like when you go to the gym and you're working out and you're working out certain muscles and you're creating muscle memory. It's all about that. There are going to be times when you're going to slip and you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get angry or annoyed or whatever comes up. But ultimately, I think it's a culmination of all those little moments where you can just take a moment to pause and see that little gap between action and reaction. And if you can just take a moment of pause there, that actually is the most important moment. And I think that in life, no matter where you are in the world and whatever your situation is, if you just remember to take that moment of pause between whatever stimulus is sort of wanting you to react in an emotional way, whether it's in a positive or negative way, that moment of pause, that is actually the moment. And so in that way, it isn't that there's one aha moment. It's the entire life is just a series of aha moments, and it's just slowly building on that. And I do think, I mean, I keep on mentioning meditation, but for me, at least, in my path, meditation has always been the tool that I've used to sort of increase that little pause. And I'm far from perfect. It's a constant journey, but I think that every situation that challenges you actually helps you build that little moment of pause. And so I would say for anybody, if you're in a situation that's challenging for you, rather than just jumping to react, just even if it's just to take one breath, just pause. It could be 1 second, and that could be the difference between reacting and acting with a sense of knowledge or a sense of unity towards the person in front of you. And it's tremendously rewarding being able to just have that brief pause and that moment of clarity where you go, is this reaction actually going to serve me in this situation? And is it going to serve the person I'm with? Or is it going to be better just to take a moment and go, this isn't worth fighting over. This isn't worth getting upset about. So yeah, it's not one moment, it's every moment that makes the difference.
So important, this share you just gave there, Jared. What I heard were two things. The first, that it is the moment, and what you shared there was so practical, right? Because we're all faced with these situations from time to time when we feel the emotions rising and we feel ourselves coming out of phase, if you will. We're not grounded. Yeah. But just to take that advice right there and say, okay, just take one breath. It's only one, right? And if you breathe fast, it's really quick.
Right.
I know we don't tend to teach that, but we breathe fast, it's pretty quick. And just take one breath, right? And then suddenly you find that pause, and then it's not that you have to choose something different, but you do have the choice. So important.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing that I heard you say that I think is really important is that it is a layered building process, right? I think for me in particular, I could point to epiphany moments that I've had where I felt major shifts in my understanding from one state to the next. But I think when you look back at them all, right, each one is a progression. And if you're disciplined about this and you carry it through your life, you could have hundreds or thousands of these points where you're just shifting a little bit, maybe even not even aware of the shifts that are occurring until suddenly you have 50, 100, 1,000 shifts, and now you're somewhere else. That's so important, and I think it's so important for our listeners out there that this isn't something that is earth-shattering. You don't have to climb a huge mountain, although that's also fun. But you don't have to do that, right, to get this kind of understanding, and that's huge. I really appreciate you sharing that, Jared.
Thank you, DK. Yeah, it perfectly encapsulates it. So,
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right, and now back to actually the first guest on the panel here that I met back in September. And Shelley, I wonder, though we've already shared your story back then, and there's actually a recording of that show available for anybody who wishes to see it, as well as our time Himali with you and Reiki and focusing on that solution. But Shelley, I wonder, just to offer and provide some balance to what we're talking about today. You had a major shift, right, in your career, in your life direction some time ago, where you shifted from something else, from teaching, from university work, to being in the Kulu Valley, right? I wonder if you might take us through that process of how you came to make that decision, and what was it like before, and what do you find now?
Oh, thank you. I found that when I was a teacher, and then I was working at the university as a professor. I found that everything was great, but I was already meditating, and I already had a teacher, and there was something that was so much better. It's kind of like it's the same picture, but it's got like fairy dust on it. Like all of a sudden the colors are brighter and everything's sharper and more in focus. And I knew that for me, that was more important than anything else. And it was so strong in me that I just basically, it took a few years of coming and going and looking, but I knew that I wanted to live my life with a sense of the purpose of knowing that I was way more than a person who was a job, than a person who was just a daughter or a wife or a mother. I was so much more. And as slowly and slowly as that happened, I didn't drop anything. I actually became better at everything, which is a really interesting approach. It's like all these tough moments that come, and then all of a sudden you break through, and you're looking at the sky and thinking, oh my God, how did I do that? Like when Jared was saying about that aha, those little aha moments, it's every time I would pause and I would have some insurmountable task in front of me. And then all of a sudden I could do it. And it wasn't as if I say I could do it because I don't know how else to put it, but something was guiding me to do it, and I wasn't resisting. And it led me here. And here isn't necessarily a place. Here is a place of who I am inside, and that place that everybody is. Because we're all coming from that same unity consciousness. And we know that when we close our eyes. Because everybody, when they close their eyes, they're not seeing what's outside of their eyes. They actually start looking inside. And everybody says, I. And when they mean I, first they start off meaning their body and their mind and their individuality. And then that same I gets bigger and bigger, and we are all that same I. And we know that through meditation and just pausing the senses for just a little bit. And that I will call the knower. That is the one that knows. It's not the one that thinks or the one that supposes, but the one that knows without a shadow of a doubt that that's who I am.
Wow, what a beautiful share. That's so awesome. And Shelley, although I know Jarrett had described a different path to reaching the point through a bunch of micro aha moments, if you will, was there a moment when you were suddenly realizing and fully sensing and understanding and knowing this unity consciousness that you mentioned? Was there a moment when you just looked around in your mind or in your heart and said, yes, this is it? Could you tell us about that?
It was, I had gone to a meditation center, and I looked at this picture of who then became my teacher. And as I looked at the picture, my entire being as if knew that that was my sense of home. I had felt that with my grandmother. Everything was calm. And it was as if I knew everything in that moment. And I knew what the purpose of my life was going to be. But it took many years for my mind to catch up, for my life situations to catch up. But that moment stayed with me until I mean, it's still with me, but that was like, I could say it was a guiding moment. So it wasn't like as if, oh, I became that. It was actually like my big road sign. And I just followed it.
That's so huge. Yeah. And it wasn't like you were on a retreat or you hadn't gone on a year sabbatical all around the world. Nothing, just you looking within with your teacher there. Actually, just a picture of your teacher there,
just
right?
Just a picture.
They weren't even there. Wow. I'm feeling that. That's super awesome.
And that's when I knew that he would always say, like, he reflects back, but we have to know it for ourselves. So we're always having that sense of realization of our own self, not of anyone else. And that is very powerful and very important, that you follow your inner nature. And you have to know what that is. So
Definitely. Wow. Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. We've kind of gone around and been kind of individually questioning, but I wonder if we just might open a discussion on this question, and everybody feel free to jump in and even interrupt each other if you choose. Who have you taken the journey with that really impacted your perspectives and your views? Because what I find is that most often, although it is possible to find your path of enlightenment on your own, usually there's a perspective of somebody else who's with you that helps add color and actually. I might just open it up with Jarrett to start, and then everybody just please jump in. Jarrett mentioned that actually in one of the classroom environments that you and I have shared, Jarrett, that you were observing each perspective as different but yet similar and looking for those similarities. And could you kind of share a bit of that thought that you shared with us that day?
Absolutely. I definitely love this form of discussion. There's like the Hindi word for it is actually called satsang, and it literally means the company of truth. And it's that gathering where you're gathering with like-minded individuals and talking about something that is higher than ourselves as individuals. That higher sense of unity or oneness between all of us. And the way that I've often described it and also heard it described is that if you were to have 100 people taking different photos of the exact same scene, you're going to get different angles, and depending on what lens they're using or what camera settings they're using, you're going to get a different angle. And everything's going through a different filter, but you're still photographing that same scene. And in the same way, when we all are on our various spiritual journeys, that our sense of what we're getting out of it and our experience that we're getting to experience from that journey is all going to be different. And discussing it with people, for me, is just a hugely inspiring and powerful thing, because getting those different perspectives is so important, not only for understanding, but also for conveying it. Because as we discuss how we feel about something, I feel that we get better at conveying it to other people, because it deepens our own understanding, as well as, deepening the sort of the total amount of knowledge that there is between all of us, because we're all sharing and bouncing off each other and understanding the perspective that each person brings to it. And so for me, it's hugely impactful having that group setting of either a class or a satsang or a podcast where we all get to discuss our sense of it. It's wonderful. Like I just love this. This is my favorite form of getting together with people.
Awesome. Any comments on that thought, the perspectives of the people we take the journey with?
I can say something. Sorry, Shelley. But I think that's where I came into realization, growing up, every religion has that have-tos, and you have to do this way, or we do it in a certain manner, or a tradition, culture, and everything. And when I came to US to see but these people don't do it that way. Does that mean that they are not going to have righteous path? Or does that mean it's wrong? What is right and what is wrong, right? And so that's when realizing that, we're billions of people on this planet, and that many perspectives. And no one is right or wrong. It's just the way you're looking at it. And so, as Jared said, it's like, you put 100 people, and then to also see that my siblings who grew up in the same house have different views and opinions, right? We all are individual, unique people, and that many unique perspective, and to see how things, and it goes the same way with healing or doing anything, right? The meditation too. There's so many out there. What works for you? You. So you really have to, what Susan said, use your intuition. And we all have that GPS system within us. And, and it constantly gives you signs. And, so how do you, that pause, as Jared mentioned, how do you use that pause and to listen in to your intuition, your GPS system? So I hope that brings in a little bit.
Absolutely. Shelley, you had a comment as well?
I did. I was just looking at the screen, and I was thinking how when everybody was speaking before, and it's whoever comes in front of me, I feel that's that opportunity where to connect. And as I was looking at the screen, I was thinking about each person on this screen that I have connected so powerfully with. And I just find that I'm just looking here, and we're like these light figures on this screen, and we all are those light figures. And I'm thinking about Susan, who is this brilliant photographer. And so when Jared was talking about photography, I was remembering that about her and her like enormous heart. And then Himali, who every time I look at her, she just cracks me up. And Zinnia, who is like a songbird. And when Zinnia leads a meditation, I could just fly. And now what can I say about Jared? I mean, I know him a long time. He's just brilliant. And DK, I think that you are probably one of the most interesting interviewers I've ever met. I've always found, I love how you sum things up and understand and bring it forth. So that was my little, what I wanted to say.
Awesome. Honored by that, Shelley. That's great. Zinnia, Susan, any comments on the perspectives that other people bring along your journey?
Yeah, I was actually just, when Jared was talking, I thought, yeah, really, the satsang is where we get to share in a completely non-judgmental, fearless space that what we really are. So we get to connect with the beings that are like walking our path with us, in a space of complete oneness. And then from there, support each other and share the love and share that empowerment of, I'm not bound to anything that I imagine myself to be bound in. And just to invite people to have satsang, it not only opens us to be able to speak our truth, but also allows them to have a space where they can freely share, because whatever they share that is of the judgments, we come to see that that isn't the truth. And whatever they share that is just like space and love, we can get grounded all together in that as that. And this way we can just, I don't know, really uplift each other on this path through this, ocean of Maya, as they say in the scriptures, the ocean of duality and confusion. And is this right or is that right? And then be grounded in that which doesn't change. And be grounded in that with other people, like we are here and we are in the classes when we meet. And that's so precious. I think that's the most precious gift that we can give ourselves and each other, to be grounded together in the calmness. That's really it.
It is. Susan, any thoughts to close out this particular question?
Oh my gosh, yes. I have so much that I want to say. Let me see if I can be concise. So the first thing that I want to say is that was beautiful how she just described that. And I actually call that riding the center of the seesaw. I describe that to my clients that way because, life has its ups and downs. And if we're riding the ends of the seesaw, we're going up and down, and that gets to be a tiring ride. And when we learn to ride the center of the seesaw, then, it's a little more stabilizing, and we can find that centeredness, that calmness in the middle. But, I have to say, there's a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And Shelley has been that for me this past, several months or year. And she has, I won't say challenged, because I'm very open to the idea. I am aware that we all have different ways of looking at the world. We all have different lenses, right? And what Jared said about, you have different people take a picture of the same scene, you get different pictures. I actually used to teach a course called The Art of Seeing. And I often use the camera as a healing tool. And so the key takeaway for participants there was to have this awareness that, I would set up a flower vase and have them go take pictures, and every single picture was different. And for them to see this on the screen projected, wow, that's a simple setup. It's a flower vase. And look how 10 of us took completely different pictures, which opens up and liberates us to see that, maybe my way of seeing is not the only way of seeing. And maybe it behooves me to be curious about the lens that somebody else is adopting in the world. And so when I met Shelley and Himali and Jared, I was so curious. I had this openness, and I feel like openness and is liberating. And it's like I reflect on people in my life who are very closed and very one track minded, and there is no other way. I think Himali was talking about religion. I grew up in a very religious family, and that was the idea, right? And I feel like it's so liberating when we can acknowledge and have the awareness that there are many different lenses, and they're all equally valid.
Wow.
I think I summed up everything I wanted to say just there.
I'm so glad, because there was so much there. And I'm just having the impression that's coming into my mind now that really with all six of us together, we're forming like a little masterclass here in less than an hour. I mean, there's so many nuggets of truth in here that, it's off the chart. It's so amazing. And I'm so glad that y'all made the time to join me here this evening. And I wondered if we could kind of go around the circle here and just offer if folks would like to lean into what you're doing, how would they reach out to you, and what's the current, if we could just be concise about what's the current program that you're offering, say in the next couple of months, and start with Shelley.
So I have a website, knower.ca, and you can reach me through knower.ca, and I also have Knower Meditation Group on Facebook, and a new YouTube channel where I'm doing mini meditations. And I forgot what it's called. Jared will tell you.
You can just go to knower.ca/YouTube, and that'll get to our YouTube channel.
Leave it to the IT guy, right? Although he does so much more than IT. Actually put a friendly link in there. Jared, do you have any sources of your own that you might direct folks to, or an email address?
You know what? We're just started doing everything through knower.ca or knowermeditation.com, and that kind of gets to everything. If you want to contact either my mom or I, it's just knower@knower.ca, and we'll both get the emails, and we'd love to hear from people. Anyone who's interested in meditation or understanding the concept of the knower, or knowing more about the courses that my mom teaches, or our social media, it can all be found there. So that's about it for me.
Awesome. And how about you, Zinnia?
Thank you. Well, I started my online cafe, which is called the Amaram Cafe, based on the mantra Amaram Ham, which means I am freedom. My nature is freedom. My nature is eternal. Bliss, really. But I created that to have a space for people to exactly have this kind of conversation, to come together and have satsang and kind of go beyond their own thinking. So what helps me really is to sing and to go beyond my own thinking. So we're having, I think, monthly kirtans, singing meditation evenings or mornings, wherever. So they will be just on the front page. And I guess we just finished one course, but another one will be starting. So that will also be on the front page. Yeah, that's it. Amaram
Awesome.
Cafe.
It's just amaramcafe.com?
.com, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go there myself. Sounds good. Himali, how would folks reach out to you for your coaching?
My website is himalivora.com, and I also have a YouTube channel where I have some recipes on there. It's youtube.com/c/healing corner. And I also have, I'm formulating online Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 classes end of July. Also, my book is about to come out in August. It's going to launch around August 17. It's called Sacred Death, and it's in collaboration with 25 authors and healers who have healing tools for caregivers. Also, I am going to, and it will be all on the website, but start a death cafe in July where you can talk about anything that has to do with death and dying. And yeah.
Great. And Susan?
So first, since Himali mentioned the book, a book that I was a part of, a featured author in The Wellness Universe Guide, 25 Tools to Achieve Anything, just became an Amazon bestseller. So I have chapter 16 in there, which is called Rocket Fuel for Your Dreams, Harness the Power of Vision, which is a framework that I use. So there's that. And then I have a group on Facebook called Lotus Women Rising. I'm very connected to Kuan Yin, who is like the bodhisattva and the teacher of compassion. And the Lotus Women Rising group, I'm going to be hosting another series called the Life Lessons from the Lotus, which is a free series. I'll probably put those on YouTube too, so everyone can access that. And then my website is susaneckertma.com.
All right, sounds good. I really appreciate that. And I hope that our audience out there, whether it be now or on a replay or when we get this out to audio, would reach out to all of you and learn more about, these tremendous offerings and tremendous opportunities for enlightenment. So I would just close out. I've been
We
quiet.
miss Shelley.
What's that? Oh,
We
I'm
miss
sorry.
Shelley and her offerings.
I thought. Oh yeah, you're right. I started with Jarrett. Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. You're up.
Yes, so I think we did it. It's knower.ca. I'll be starting classes again in September, and I usually have a weekly meditation, but we're off for the summer, and knower.ca and find me on Facebook, Knower Meditation.
All right. And you have a YouTube channel. Are you going to be recording meditations on the channel over the summer?
Yes, on the YouTube channel, we're recording mini meditations. So you can just tune in for a few minutes and you can catch just mantras, or I might do some pranayam or a Gita verse. It's just very short, very concise, and just a little mini meditation. You get your little power moment and you're off.
All right. And
just going to hop in for a moment and just say this week's was great. It's from chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 42. And it's just a 3-minute clip of my mom singing with the beautiful Himalayas in the background. And it just puts you into that wonderful meditation space. So
definitely. I can feel the power of it already, even though I haven't even seen it yet. That's awesome. I have to admit, there was, when Shelley and I first met, just to close this out, there was a bit of mystique involved with the fact that Shelley was actually sitting in the Kulu Valley, right? I'm like, who is this? And why are they wanting to be on the center of calmness here in the United States? This is crazy. But just and then our communications that kind of ensued from there and until the show. Of course, once we actually got online, it was like, wow, I was just amazed, and I leaned in big time. But there's something about the Himalayan, right? It's really neat. It's quite a special place, and it has an energy all its own, I would say.
And I just have to say, the name of the valley is called the Valley of Gods, and that.
All right, a slight spiritual focus, as it were. All right, awesome. Any final comments? I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody, and thank you again, Himali, for reminding.
I think I probably wasn't paying attention because I think Shelley.
It's all good. Any final comments before we close for the day?
I just want to thank you. So
much. Yeah, me too. I just want
to. It was amazing.
Yes, thank you for having us.
It's just great to be on your show, DK. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and it's been fun being part of the Gita classes with you over the last several months, and it's just great to be in this setting with all of us who are quite familiar from meeting every week, and finding that center of calmness within ourselves is just a very admirable goal, and I think your podcast just perfectly sums that up. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Amazing.
Thank you all. And I will finish. I've been, like I said before, I've been quiet and I haven't shared my truth, except for throughout the broadcast, of course. But I will leave us with what I've been discovering, and actually what just came to my own realization over the last 2 months. And that is that, and I have the pleasure and the good fortune of working with a lot of folks that are in the personal development and personal growth space through training and other communities these days. And everyone talks about the kind of the 3 paths, right? The be, do, and have of personal growth and personal development. But I've discovered recently that there are actually 4, right? So, and of course those 3 are included. But the 4 are to discover all that we have, to be intentional of everything we do, to realize who we really are, and to know and have the fullness of real consciousness. And that's the epiphany that I realized over the last couple of months, that there is that fourth layer is so important, and to find and live in that layer is a huge awakening that's occurring for me personally. And so from now on I'm going to talk about 4 paths instead of just 3. It's so huge. And on my journey, I am honored to be walking with all of you. it's been such, I'm so blessed by our connection and our continued relationship moving forward. So this is great. Thank you again for joining me here on the Center of Calmness. I'm DK Warner.